Fantastic. Hello, everybody. I'm Tal from Visuality Systems. Nice to see you all here. Thank you for coming. With me, co-hosting Stephen French. And together in the panel, we have Jeremy from Google, the Samba team, Brad from Apple, Lilia from Visuality Systems, Gingis from Microsoft, and Paolo from SUSE. Today, we're here to show you how the SMB client works together. All the environment can seamlessly speak to each other, talk to each other quite seamlessly, quite easy, simple, and that's what we're going to show you from different kind of environment, different operating systems, all working on the same server. And let's go forward. So a bit about the SMB protocol. It was initially developed by Barry Feigenbaum from IBM in the 80s, and it provides the shared access to file and printer on the network. Unlike other network protocol like HTTP and FTP, we're not talking about just transferring a file or copy a file. It's also giving access to the server itself. In the 90s, Microsoft basically took over the protocol, rebranded, called it CIFS, a Common Internet File System. And ever since then, the SMB protocol is part of all the Microsoft OSs until today. During the years, there was upgrades all the time. With Windows Vista, the SMB was upgraded from SMB 1 to SMB 2. Now we have a much less chatty protocol and with more security enhancement. And with Windows 8, there was a release of SMB version 3 with encryption and more security enhancements, more features. And today we have SMB 3.1.1, which is the latest one today, quite popular, and all of the environment you will see today support SMB 3.1.1. So what are we going to do here? We have different environments, different implementation of the protocol, and we want to show you how each and every one of us can connect to the same server and play together, do some stuff. You'll see you'll shortly see what we're gonna do. The server that we're gonna connect to is the Azure server. So let's see what popular major clients are available today. Obviously, Microsoft client. Microsoft has a built-in SMB server and SMB client since the 90s. It's in any environment. Microsoft is also in charge of the documentation of the protocol. So every time they release a new protocol, there are also documentation that the community can use freely as part of the other implementation working by the Microsoft specifications. Apple have their own implementation of the SMB protocol since 2012 with the release of macOS 10.8, the Mountain Lion version. Apple also has in their Macintosh both client and server versions, and all of them support also SMB version 3.1.1. The idea was to better interact, better interpret with the Microsoft, with the Windows environment. Other than the Macintosh, also in the last 4 years, Apple also implements the SMB client in iPhones. So we talked about the Microsoft environment, we talked about the Macintosh environment, now we move to the Linux environment. Steve.
Okay, thank you. So this is super exciting. As you know, Samba has an SMB client and server. A lot of people forget that it has an FTP-like tool that is used for all kinds of backup scenarios. It's also used for, I use it every time just to test, is that share available, right? Like for a demo like this. So people use it all the time for quick and dirty stuff, but it also has a rich set of libraries, over 3.5 million lines of code to look through stuff, and it's available for plug-in for many other purposes, and it's under the GPL v3 license. Now I maintain the kernel client, which is completely separate code base from Samba. There's a tiny bit of user space code shared, but very different. It's under the GPL v2 license like the rest of the kernel. And there's a CIFS utils repo that has things like ACL, management utilities, and some other things. And completely different than Samba, but this is the kernel file system driver to allow you to get transparent access to files as if it's a local file system. There's also a very confusing thing. There's the SMB client libraries we just talked about in Samba. There's also a libSMB2 maintained by Ronnie Sahlberg. And this is embedded in the Linux media player, for example. And he likes to bring up that any of you using a PlayStation really should be using this, because apparently he thinks that's the coolest use case, SMB libraries in the PlayStation. It's very interesting. It has an LGPL license, so it's used for a different set of applications sometimes than Samba. LGPL v2+, sorry, thank you. And very different than the Samba libraries, but is used for some other cases.
All right, so we had the Microsoft environment, we had the Apple environment, we have the Linux environment, and now with the Visuality Systems, we're talking about all other operating system. The Visuality Systems product can support up to 60 different operating systems existing in the market today. The Visuality Systems is a commercial product, client and server, and on the client side, there are two clients, one written in C, and that's more for the embedded world, for the IoT devices, and a second client written in Java, that made more for Java applications and Android applications. All products support SMB 3.1.1. And one more thing that we will present here is the Visuality Systems Android file manager, a new file manager that support SMB QUIC. And I will explain about SMB QUIC now for those of you who are not familiar with that. The SMB over QUIC is an entire new protocol. It's an alternative to TCP. It comes with a built-in TLS 1.3 encrypted VPN and allows connectivity from Windows and, as I mentioned, Android to access data over the internet. It was introduced in Windows 11 and with Windows Server 2022 Azure Edition. Also, Azure files are working on their implementation, which hopefully will come soon, and through Android, through the VS File Manager application. Today, about 30% of the network of the internet traffic goes through QUIC, through Edge and Chrome browser, and it's increasing every day now. Everything inside QUIC is always encrypted with AES 128 or 256. By default, it uses port 443, which initially was designed in a way to be accessible through firewalls that use the port for HTTPS. But it can be also configured to any other port. So as I said, those are the clients that we will show you in a sec. We are all going to connect to Azure, which is the biggest SMB server in the world in terms of usage. It supports a wide variety of workload, but does implement small subset of SMB features compared to Windows Server. The Azure file server requires encryption, so any version from SMB 3 with encryption and above can connect it. And as I mentioned, all of our products here that will show you, all of the implementation support SMB 3.1.1. And also SMB over QUIC will be presented with the Azure as well. So without further ado, let's begin. Lilia, you'll upload a file, a PPT file, to a host share on Azure.
My name is Lilia. I'm from Visuality Systems. I will present our embedded client developed in C. I'm going to mount right now the Azure server share. Actually, let's see the list of folders. Here is a list of shares of folders under the share I've recently mounted. We can see opened, we are a Windows client, that's the same. And now I will upload the presentation recently we've seen up to the share. We work in SNIA folder, right? So I have it ready. Here it is. Let's go.
As always, demo is a demo.
And here it is.
Now we go forward to Jeremy.
Thank you. Just want to make it very clear, I'm not here on behalf of Google. No Google lawyers have but seen this presentation, know what I'm doing. I'm a rogue employee right now. I'm representing the Samba team. So if I can just switch over there. So if you've ever wondered what it is that we are doing in that lab at the end of the hall, making this work is what we're actually up to. Yeah, so hopefully you can see that. I can make it a little bit bigger so this looks really, really simple. She was able to mount it, copy stuff up. I'm going to start by using the SMB client. If you're very quick, you can copy the password there and you can get access to and delete all our presentation. But so there we are. I've connected using our, as you can see, user local Samba bin SMB client. This is an unreleased version of of the client that I've been messing with that does DFS path names. So the great thing about this is that it all works together, and that's one of the things that we do. We work very hard on in the Interop labs and in other places, is making sure all our products seamlessly work together. So if I do an LS, you can see what's in there, including all the temporary files and everything. So if I CD into SNIA, as I said, this is the command line client usually used for backups. And there is the presentation at the end there. You can see the size and everything. This is your standard FTP-like client. So yes, very dull, very ordinary. So let's show you something cool. A file manager. Ooh. And here's a bookmark that I added earlier. So if I click on that, there you go. It has now mounted the Azure file server, and you can see that there is the SNIA presentation, which I am now going to deface by opening it up with LibreOffice, because obviously this is Linux and I'm an open source guy. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert an image, and let's see, pictures. Let me put my ugly face in there. There you go. So you may or may not know that I used to run the quiz show at the Linux World, Linux Foundation events, and that was one of the costumes I wore. If you remember your Star Trek, I was one of the guys with the invisible spaceship. I believe I actually wore that costume the first time I ran the quiz, and Microsoft turned up for the first time at a Linux Foundation event. And so that was great fun. We had Bill Hilf, I think it was, dressed as Darth Vader and a bunch of stormtroopers fighting the Linux founders. I can't remember who won, actually. So there you go, just showing. So here's LibreOffice. Now, the great thing about this is, if you notice, LibreOffice is just accessing this as a mounted file system. It doesn't know the difference between local and Azure. It's just accessing it remotely. I've added and this is the part I haven't tested, so let's see if this works. I should be able to save. Hurrah! Oh, shall I use ODF format? No, probably not. I'll keep it as PowerPoint, and I believe if it works correctly, it's saved. Hurrah! So that was a bit of a stressful event. So this is libSMB client in action. So libSMB client is the set of libraries that underlie the FTP client, and right here it's using GNOME 3. They are a plugin into GNOME 3. You can plug them into anywhere. In fact, Google Chrome OS uses the libSMB client libraries to provide access to SMB resources from Chrome OS. And also, we use the libSMB client libraries or parts of the Samba libraries to provide logins to Active Directory from Chrome OS. So they're really useful. You can put them anywhere. Obviously, there has to be open source to implement them. But anyway, so I have opened it, I have defaced the presentation, and I will now hand it over to Brad. So
we have about 20% of the demo work so far.
Okay, I guess I should say I do not represent Google. Since I'm from Apple, I'm not going to use a command line because I think I know how. So I will mount the server using Finder. And I already have the URL up there. And unlike Jeremy, I keep my password secured in a keychain. So I guess we're all in the SNIA folder. I don't think Azure supports WSP or Spotlight. So I am going to try to repair the damage done by Jeremy. So goodbye. And I should be able to, let's see. I'm not that familiar with PowerPoint. Actually, can I just drag it in? Ha ha! There you go.
Much nicer.
Even size it down. And then the moment of truth. We will try and save it. Second save. Oh, no, it's trying to save now. Spoke too soon. And it's thinking about it.
Is this your new client code? And of course, the great thing is all this is being done encrypted to the Azure server. So
It's trying to save. Okay. It's not having much. Oh, just took it a while.
Easy like riding a bicycle.
You guys ever made this mistake and your wife and her friends snuck in there, found stuff on Neighborhood and filled my office and made it usable and look okay? Like I no longer look like the typical developer enough. I mean, I try to make sure I don't comb my hair and all that, but it doesn't work. And by the way, in Linux, we typically, for Azure mounts, have them stored in credential files. We don't typically show them as nicely as Jeremy. So we're mounted to various test chairs, but that's the wrong one. Okay, so that looks kind of like the right directory, doesn't it? And what confused me for a minute was that it's mounted as an SMB3. So in Linux, you can mount as SMB3 or CIFS. Some people don't like the four-letter word CIFS. I don't know why. But if you look in here, there is a SNIA folder. And in the SNIA folder, we have these boring presentations and things like this. We also have some nice pictures. And I think the goal here now would be to open LibreOffice, not using Jeremy's libraries, but using the kernel, just like you would be if it was on ext4 or a local file system, but mounted to Azure. I don't remember where this data center is, probably in San Antonio or Washington State or something. But let's see, is that this? Oh, it could be. Now, I don't know who this person is, so I think this is some sort of security problem. But what I could do is I could insert a picture, I think. If I remember correctly, I just insert image. And then if you guys ever remember the kind of cool things you can do, let's see. A quiz question. Do you guys know, first of all, where this is, what event it was after, and who the person is? Quiz question. This is a moment in history. The name is David, good. And his birthday was a few days ago. But why is this important? And where was this? Quiz question. This is important, audience. I know, but
Samba XP.
Samba XP, good.
In the Turkish
it was something
bathhouse or whatever it was.
Yeah, it was.
Whatever it is.
A German bar with. Anyway, needless to say, everybody else is drinking after a hard, intense conference like this.
Yeah. It can't be Sostolitas because people have their food.
Yeah. So the trivia here that's important, and this is truly important, is after these stressful conferences, people are drinking. But what am I doing with David Holder, the IPv6 expert of the world? This moment in history is the first IPv6 mount in history. And we're actually working on our laptops while these people are partying after a conference. What's going on?
Having said that, Steve actually was working on the CIFS client code in the middle of a belly dancing presentation in Germany. So he's very dedicated.
Yeah, I have to admit that's true. Okay, so now we're ready for the Windows demo. So let me exit this so we don't end up.
You got to save it.
I did. I saved it.
Oh, okay.
All right. So here we have a VM running the latest build of Windows 11, compiled September 12th, just a few days ago. We'll mount a share. Go over to the Z drive. On the Wireshark, we can see activity happening. It's encrypted. Now, I do not have PowerPoint or any other Office apps installed inside this VM, so we'll extend the demo slightly. We'll mount the server, the SMB server, Windows SMB server running inside this VM to the physical machine over here. So it'll be the Z drive as well. We'll navigate it through here. Let me minimize the VM so there's less confusion. All right, that's the shared file. Let me copy it over from the VM. So this is rather slow. I'm not sure why. Things should be happening locally here. I think it's a 5 megabyte file. So it might actually be done copying. I'm not sure why the client thinks it's still in progress. Okay, so it's locked. Well, looks like we have something more than a hiccup here. So from inside the VM, yes, we can browse the share. It is working. I just don't have PowerPoint still here. What I can do is create a folder. All right. Well, we did mount it, and we've listed the files.
You'll have to trust us that Microsoft support SMB.
That was the meat joke. I'm glad it wasn't.
Well, once it unhangs, I'll come back
Yeah,
here.
sure.
And one nice thing is, like in the Linux example, literally this is the release candidate from a couple weeks ago. He's running release candidates of Windows, right? Even the current stuff. So we're allowed to have bugs. We are allowed to have bugs, but I think this is more likely a hotel internet thing.
Yeah, I agree. So next we want to show SMB over QUIC. All right, I'm going to take a picture of the audience. If someone don't want his wife to see that he's here for some reason, or his husband, just hide it for a second. All right, one, two, three. So we have the picture now, and Lilia will do the magic. We're connecting to the Azure file.
The setup is like this. I have a virtual machine of Server 2022 Azure Edition running on Azure, supporting SMB over QUIC. Here is the screen. I'm running the capture to prove you I'm not fooling you. It's QUIC indeed. And here is the share. And the application is on my phone. I'm mirroring it. Let's see. First of all, you can see the network settings. I've enabled just SMB over QUIC. SMB over TCP is disabled here. The DNS, I'm using the Google one. And let's go to here is my prepared share connection. And right now it is empty. Yep. So I'm going to upload the picture.
In the meanwhile, I will say that the application is quite new. It's on. Here we go.
Okay, there is no capture. I'm sorry, but here is the picture inside the share on the virtual machine. Go. I forgot to start
Are you the first to implement SMB over QUIC outside of Microsoft?
From what we know, yeah.
This one is in Java.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right, so that's what we have to show you, and you're welcome to ask any question. We still have time. Yes, Kevin, you're asking who are the customers using the phone application. So again, there are hundreds of file manager application out there, but what we showed is the first one and the only one that we are aware of that can support QUIC. That's the only application that supports QUIC, SMB over QUIC. Did I answer your question?
So, yeah, so 445 is very commonly blocked by ISPs and whatever, but they don't block SMB over QUIC. So once SMB over QUIC gets more widely adopted, and we're hoping to add that to the Samba client libraries, obviously, and server, then at that point, anyone using these libraries, anyone using these applications will have direct access into SMB storage, which actually can be more convenient than cloud storage. Having said that, trying to teach my family to use both. So
I can give you an example of this. So we had an amusing thing that happened when I set this up. So I took one of my test shares that doesn't have anything secure on it, and I can throw away the password when we're done. And what was interesting to me about that was I couldn't see his presentation. And then it dawned on me, I was using it to test snapshots, previous versions of files. And so I was looking at a previous version of file. Now that's not something you typically do in Google Cloud Storage, right? But it's a file system kind of thing. So file systems are a bigger set of operations, but it struck me when I was opening this, oh, that's why this might be really cool to access SMB over QUIC. My phone, I could look at a snapshot of how I screwed up that tax return or document or whatever it was. And it's so easy in Azure, and I'm sure in other servers too. Anyway, so file systems can do really cool things. And that 445, Spectrum blocks my stuff at home. When I'm here, it's fine. But it's so nice to be able to access this.
So as another example, large video files, however they may be acquired, if you want to share those with friends, very commonly, I believe that there is a problem with uploading and downloading files. I think only Google Chrome will do it to Google Cloud. Firefox will not download a file over 20 gigs, I think. There's an issue there. It's something to do with the APIs used over HTTP. For SMB, no problem. You just mount it as a local share. You can drag it and drop it, local NAS server or whatever, or to a cloud store and have them download it back from there. So There are more uses than a blob store.
Fantastic example. My son messaged me while we were at the conference. A friend of his had some useful finance data for research. They were finance majors in college, and he wanted to save this before his friend deleted it because he thought this might be useful for him. It's not going to work to, upload it to Google Drive, or it's not going to work. This would have been great for him. He needed it 2 days ago, so it's a little late, but.
The question was if the application is on the Android store. It is. We're also working on an iOS application as well with QUIC.
This is a different use case than the standard consumer phone stuff. I mean, you are right. It is very easy to use the inbuilt apps to upload things in a cloud store and have them synced. So this is probably more targeted at enterprise customers who want to share confidential data or other kind of things, in a way that you kind of need file access for, rather than the blob store access. As I'm going to mention in my talk tomorrow, most sort of consumers who have files, they don't know what files are anymore. They don't know where things are stored. If you ask them where things were stored on their phone, they couldn't tell you. So yeah, apparently computer science courses have to teach the concept of a file system to incoming new students because they've never run across it before.
Okay, thank you very much and have a good rest of the day.